Can't help himself anymore.
All right, this is one of the last ones. There's probably only 2 more pup dates before the pups are gone. And this, my friends, is the most shocking size transformation we've had. Look at this
Can't even fit in the
behemoth.
frame. Yeah.
Those paws are huge.
He's officially a big boy. Say hi.
That's a large chunker, as they say.
He is a thick boy, and they're very furry now. They're eating solid food. They're pooping a lot. So yeah, it's full dog season now.
Are they pooping outside?
No, because we haven't gotten them. They don't get their vaccinations until next week.
Right.
So, but we have like a pee pad area for them in the pen, and they've learned really quickly where to go. So they're smart.
Good. Makes cleanup very easy.
Yeah, it makes it very
for sure.
Easy. All right,
Nice.
You guys shoot this shit while I go take him downstairs.
Or you think you're gonna be a sad papa?
Bye.
Bye. I don't think we got a name for that puppy.
No, chunk monk. I have a 3-year-old dog that's been staying with me for all of this month, and he stayed with me for a good chunk of January too. He's basically a 3-year-old body, so a big golden retriever, but the brain of that 8-week-old that he just showed.
How does that work?
So, it's just under socialized and just like I said, immature brain. So he doesn't regulate himself well. He gets excited super easily. The short and sweet of it is he gets overwhelming for humans. So a lot of it is helping him learn how to kind of live with a person, but
was that a street dog or something?
No. He's involved with a rescue right now. He's a golden retriever. There's nothing wrong with him. It's just there's a learning curve to living with a 3-year-old immature golden retriever. But
gotcha.
He's been doing great here. He's awesome. His name is Wilbur. So
Wafer's
Blake, you can
dumb.
name him Wilbur.
Wilbur, nice.
Did you say Wafer's pretty dumb?
Wafer's a dumb dog.
I'm not gonna go.
But he's cute. He's very cute.
He's very smart for sure.
Yeah.
He's got cells firing in there for sure.
Well, I think that it's funny because Riley obeys commands really well, understands his name, listens when you tell him to do stuff. It's just street smart wise, he's not very street smart. Yeah, he's just a goofball. He doesn't really know what's going on in the general world. Kind of confuses him, startles him a little bit, but otherwise, he's very intelligent. So I feel like they're going to be
see Wafer's very scary eyes right behind me right now.
True. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's Totally Biased Music. It's Blake, Trey, and Anthony. And today we are reviewing the music has
take your time.
Music has a right to the children.
No. Music has the right to children.
To
children. By who's the artist, Anthony?
Boards of Canada.
Boards of Canada.
That's an easy one.
Okay. And then The Creator, which is a movie of my picking. Album is Anthony's pick. And before we get started, I just got to say, I feel like mixing children and music in that title would have made a little bit more sense. Getting kind of weird vibes from the album name. I don't really...
Hold on. Let me stop you. Because... do you know who you're talking about? This is the most eclectic electronic duo that has existed in the history of time, right? You're not going to find maybe a handful, literally 5 interviews by the 2 guys that make this music. So from an oddity standpoint, this is what they're going for,
So they want to be justice, is what you're saying.
No.
Oh man, this is 4 minutes in, and I'm like, So let me get this out. All right. So Boards of Canada started in the 90s. They actually started as a trio, but I don't have any knowledge of that. But Music Has the Right to Children is their first studio album that they put out into the world. And I say it that way because these guys are very much recluses in the public eye. There's infinite things on Reddit, infinite rabbit holes to go down where people go into deciphering their music, deciphering album artwork, album titles, track links. Everything that these guys do is beyond intentional to the nth degree. I mean, you can look up a breakdown of their third album, Gio Gotti, And no, it's the second album, and you'll get some wild theories throughout the track by track breakdown of that album. But this is the first one, and I thought that this would be the only way to start any introduction into Boards of Canada, or even that type of. I mean, because we've done Telephone Tel Aviv, we've done Tipper, we've done Tycho, we've done Entangled Minds, some really eclectic electronic artists, but these guys are in a lane of their own, and I think every artist has so much respect for them would say the exact same thing. Um, and the two guys, they're actually brothers, but they don't share the same last name. I don't know how that happens. Again, the mystery of Boards of Canada never ends. But Mike Sanson and Marcus Eon, that'll be my attempt to pronounce his name. But yeah, this is a trip. I mean, it's definitely a different type of music from a listening experience, but I think what it does is so interesting between your ears, what's happening. Like, this isn't necessarily dance music. This is categorized as, IDM, or intelligent dance music, which I'm not a huge fan of that moniker, but the concept behind it, is that this is music for your head. And fuck, does this do things to me? I mean, this is the first time that I was listening to this album and trying to note, like, keep in mind track titles, because this thing does flow in a certain direction, but I've never paid attention to track titles. I mean, even whether listening on vinyl or on an iPod or just doing something, I've always let this album just kind of go. And it's such a interesting piece of art, beyond psychedelic, and we'll go into all the different techniques and different things they utilize, but it's very vintage. A lot of analog sounds, a lot of samples are being chopped up and deciphered and played backwards and looped, and it's just such an interesting experience. So I'm interested to see how you guys felt about it. I know this is Blake's first listen, but assuming it's Trey's. But Trey, what did you think? What's your experience with Boards of Canada?
I'm not like terribly familiar with Boards of Canada, but I have listened to this album before, and my old roommate Joe, he was like a huge Boards of Canada guy, and people that are really into Tipper, this is like a kind of jumping off point for like ambient electronic music from the '90s and early 2000s. Knew they're super mysterious. I think they've only played. I think their last live show was in 2007, and they've only played like a handful of live shows ever. So definitely not your typical electronic act, but I really enjoy this type of, like, it's not like going to grab your attention in a lot of different ways unless you're actually really paying attention and listening to it. Otherwise, it's just lovely, almost working background
Tones,
ambient tones. I think it's super interesting that this came out, what was it, 1998. Just a wild thing to be created in that time, with like the limited amount of electronic production that they had, and what was being so popular back then was very like digital sounding,
Aphex Twin, very fast and glitchy.
Yeah, exactly. And this is more so like a very slow, toned down, glitchy type of project. And this is one of Tom York's biggest influences as far as things like Kid A go. Tom York absolutely loves Boards of Canada. So obviously if Tom York loves it, then I'm going to have to love it, just not even by choice. Interested to hear how Blake felt about this, and it's not really in his realm of heavy shit when it comes to electronic music. So Blake, how do we fare for Music Has the Right to Children?
It is definitely not heavy shit. You hit the nail on the head with that one. But I thought it was cool. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about Boards of Canada. I don't even think Anthony said they were an electronic artist last podcast. So I like half expected vocals. I didn't know if it was a band. I didn't know what was going on. And then like 3 minutes into the first song, I was like, okay, don't think any singing is going to be happening on this track. And then I assumed that it was going to be happening for the rest of the album. So yeah, I thought it was it's interesting. It's cool. It's good. I listened to a shit ton of lo-fi hip-hop beats, lo-fi synthwave beats. I have it in the background constantly, whether it's like doing work or playing video games or whatever it is. It's just kind of constantly in the background. So that's kind of the vibe I got from this. Like, it feels disrespectful to call it background music, but it kind of felt like background music in the sense that you can just let it play and appreciate the noise that it, you know, the noises that are happening throughout it because it's very unique. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think almost an hour and 20 minutes is a little long for me for this type of music, but I did enjoy the ride. So we'll get into it a little bit more. But yeah, I was very much caught off guard. I'll say that much.
Good. I mean, like that, if anything, is probably the best way to dive into something like this. I mean, you give it too much context, you give it too much weight, and it over elevates anyone's expectations of this, you know. But I think there's enough flavor spiced throughout, like, you know, just like within this album to definitely have a lot of high points for anyone with just any decent music taste, you know. But there's a lot of like, I think Boards of Canada pays off with multiple listens. You know, again, like most of the music that we've come across, it's like your first listen is just trying to take what they're going for. But in reality, you know, I look at this album as like I do with a lot of films or other pieces of art where it's extremely, like, it can be emotionally provoking, extremely thought provoking, and just can take you out of your current state and put you in another place. You know, I mentioned Avatar does that. I mean, you go watch Avatar, you're 3 hours in that world. You know, this album, I mean, you're an hour and 11 minutes in this world, but it does a really cool thing with structure. You know, it has a prologue and an epilogue, and it has these interludes or these kind of segues that build into where it's going. And and again, you're going to hear tones and rhythms and samples that you've never heard, and you never may have never thought of how to use them in this way. I mean, it's an album that keeps on giving, even fucking, you know, over 20 years later. You know, it still is a powerful piece of music. And I think something that they were really going for at that time, or at least what I've kind of looked into or thought into, was that it's counterculture. It's, you see music going this way, we're going to try everything to go that way and see what happens. And I think what they did too was they started pulling things out of the tracks as they made them, to where there's a lot of these tracks, though they could be considered chaotic and multi-directional and overwhelming, there's a lot of bare bones in here. There's a lot of just twinkles that are happening, you know, or just a loop that's playing throughout a track that, you know, if you just played Rule the World for somebody, they might be like, oh my gosh, what is my record player broken, or is the file corrupted? But it's all purposeful, you know. And when you get lost in loops like that, your brain can start to detach and just go. And that's I think the magic of Boards of Canada music, is that it does not have to be a meaning, there doesn't have to be an overarching theme, but something hopefully will resonate with you one way or another. So like I said, I could not have done this album last year. I could not have done this early on when I joined the podcast, just because there was a path to get here, just like with Telephone Tel Aviv. You know, there's ways to kind of, I think, lean or point someone in that direction without saying, here, go listen to it. But I think the more times you spend with this album, you'll gain just more and more insight into the beauty of it. But glad we got to come here.
Hell yeah. Well, with that being said, let's get into our top tracks. Trey, why don't you lead us off? You look a little sad, Trey. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm not sad, man. I'm just tired. I had a long weekend. Billy
You've been
strings
stringing all weekend.
Billy
Yeah.
strings 3 nights takes a lot out of you. You know,
I feel that.
I ain't got in the tank like I used to, but
True.
You know,
In the tank?
And in the
What'd you say?
I said you ain't got a lot in the tank like gas.
Oh, I heard that as I got to get in the tank like I used to, and
You meant
that's
like a float
me.
tank.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I know, and like no one else would say that.
No.
I haven't said that in a minute.
I did get in conversation with someone about a float tank not that long ago, though. No, you were brought up, of course. Anyway,
Listeners,
let me
get
hop
in a
into
float
my-
tank.
Yeah, get in a float tank. You still have that? No, you got
Yeah.
rid of it.
No, I do still have it.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right, so without further ado, my top 3 tracks. Telephasic Workshop.
Yeah.
I've heard the song a handful of times in like some different like ambient and like live mixes. I think it's like relatively popular in those circles. Excellent song, super vibey. Starts out really slow, and it just kind of like a lot of these songs, it builds on itself. This one I think is the longest track on the album. It's 6 minutes and 36 seconds.
Second longest track.
Is the last one the longest? I'm curious.
Yep, last one is the longest.
The longest. Blake, gotcha. Thanks, Blake. Thanks.
Blake knows track links. Also, he brought a long ass movie. We'll talk about it later.
He did bring a long movie in here. We went very electro. We paired this up kind of nicely. It
It's a sci-fi
cheese pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Calculated.
So Teleface Workshop is number 3. Number 2 is actually Rue the Whirl.
Fuck yeah.
I really like Rue the Whirl. I think it's like the repetitive nature kind of strikes kind of like a lo-fi type chord. And it just like varies just enough to where it like kind of like it expands a little bit and like breathes throughout. And it's just like a steady, almost reminds me of like a house beat, right? Just like a I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
I'm a drummer. And then my number 1 song has to be Roy G. Biv. Mainly because of the memories of SCS9 shows. SCS9 covers Roy G. Biv. They used to cover it all the time. It's become more of a bit of a rarity in the last few years. But Roy G. Biv is always just an absolute heater at a Tribe show. And they really jam it out. And so like I knew that was my top track for when I opened the album.
Yeah, that's probably easily, I would say, the most known track off this album, and Tribe has a lot to do with that.
Probably Boards of Canada's most known track in general, I would say. And I'm okay with that.
Or Dave and Cowboy, one of the two.
Yeah,
both epic.
Yeah, I'm okay with picking the popular one in this case. So, Joe, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sure I've disappointed you with that top pick. Those are the top 3.
Beautiful track.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anthony,
I want to hear you, Blake. I'll wrap up these 2 sections. So let me hear what you got, Blake.
So number 3, I had 60-10.
Hell yeah.
So 60-10 is there. I don't know if you would call that it's like a over amplified drum kick, right? It's like kind of blown out this. Yeah. It's a breakbeat style to it. I thought that was cool. Picked up the tempo a little bit. Nice vibe to it. Still got that weird vibe to it, but there's kind of like it almost sounds like a scratch, but it's not. Almost like a rewind scratch thing going on throughout it, which I really enjoyed. Just cool sounds, cool vibe from that song. And then number 2, I had Open the Light, which is towards the end of the album. Very much a slower song. I think the name perfectly matches the music. Like I picture walking through a dense forest and coming up on just an open area, valley with sun and rivers and lakes and deer and golden retriever puppies, and they're all just there having a good time. So that's the vibe I got from Open the Light. I really enjoyed that song. And honestly, like, to me, felt like it could have been a closing track. Honestly, it could have been the cap off of the album. But I just really, really liked it. And really, a lot of the names here, like, there's a lot going on with the names and, like, colors and light and stuff. And some of them I don't really understand. But Open the Light, I think, matches perfectly. So they did a good job there. And then number 1, again, had to copy Trey here, Roy G. Biv. First off, Roy G. Biv, classic. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It is an acronym of sorts.
Colors.
Yeah, but I would be curious to know if I've heard STS9 play this live, because Trey and I have seen STS9 probably 360 times a piece, somewhere in that range. So I'm sure I have, but yeah, just a funky vibe. It sounds very tribey, you know, like it's a really cool vibe to it. So yeah, really, really liked Roy G. Biv. And then an honorable mention song I had was Turquoise Hexagon Sun.
Yes.
So that almost made it, but Roy G. Biv kind of edged it out for me. But again, a little bit of a breakbeat style. It's not as up-tempo as 60-10. But similar vibes to it, and also crazy fucking song title. So enjoyed that too. But yeah, that's what I had.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, Turquoise Hexagon Sun has the way I kind of describe it is it starts off with a lot of like timbre. And well, did y'all listen to this with headphones on?
Yeah.
Please tell me. All right, thank you. So like that timbre sound. It's like this resonating, like, oh, like high pitch frequency that they start off that track with. Then they kind of, then they kind of bring in a beat and then they blend it together. I mean, it's just so fun, just like trying to dissect how these tracks were made, because you'll never get answers, but there's just so much interesting shit going on. So, with mine, I'll start with number 3. It's basically it's a 2-track combination, and it's An Eagle in Your Mind into The Color of Fire. You know, An Eagle in Your Mind, in my mind, is the first full track on this album. It's them showing you what you can do, because the first one is kind of like just a tonal vintage, like montage prologue kind of feeling. But An Eagle in Your Mind really gets weird, and it starts with the panning. And then there's a point in the track towards the end where they use the phrase "I love you," and then it goes into this just interesting kind of breakbeat. Then the next track, Color of Fire, loops that sample of "I love you" and really does some fun shit with it. I mean, it's a child's voice singing "I love you," and it's just so, I mean, I could do an impression of it, but it's just very interesting. So those 2 tracks start my top at number 3. Number 2 is also a 2-track combination, and it is Open the Light into One Very Important Thought. Open the Light to me is the climax of the album, and then One Very Important Thought actually addresses the listener while you're hearing it, and then Happy Cycling being a closing track. But Open the Light is just beautiful. It to me is like space. It is like an ascension. It is like you're leaving this space in and hanging out in the next one. And it's also a very meditative track too. One Very Important Thought is, I think, it's so wild to put this into an album in this way, because basically you have a person saying, you know, we're reaching the ends of this Boards of Canada experience or something like that. But if you ever are selected as a juror in a censorship trial, you know, just be conscious and remember, like, they can take away other shit too if you support that ruling. So just a very interesting, thought-provoking way to kind of wrap up the album. But my number 1 track is an interlude, and it is Connie Industries. I think it's only like 50 seconds long or something, but the sounds and this, like, I just wrote like synth wavy, whirly, dirly, sick interlude. Like, it's just that sound right there. I crave to hear shit like that regularly, but to only get a short snippet of it it's one of those things that you want more of it, but so beautiful too. Right into Bakima Roy G. Biv. So, the 8-track Connie Industries, that's my favorite song and sounds on this album for sure.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of like interlude tracks on this. Like even like the minute 30 ones, Color of Fire, Bakoma.
Yeah.
They still feel like almost like interludes to me because they're so short and there's not a lot going on to them. It's kind of interesting the way they structured the album. Before we get into bottom tracks, Trey, I have to show you this. Speaking of seltzer waters, plain Topo Chico. Fan or not fan?
I like Topo Chico.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think the mineral water part of it kind of elevates it a little bit.
I feel that.
Great aftertaste.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's real big. See, we're sparkling water connoisseurs over here.
No, 2 of 3. 2 of 3. Do not put that on me.
Did you ever try that hop water that I recommended?
No, I haven't been able to find it.
Maybe it's only around here, but that's not. I don't think Lagunitas is from anywhere close by. It might be an East Coast thing though.
I'll have to look around. I bet I can find it in Target. It seems like a Target type beverage.
Yeah, it might be a Target.
All right, so let's get into bottom tracks. Trey, what do you got?
You know, my problem with picking bottom tracks on this album is like, there's nothing I really dislike. Like, there's things that I still did. I still did because I live by the rules,
Which you always have.
Which I always have and always will. I'm a rule follower, and everyone knows that. But you're also drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper.
I'm drinking 2
right now.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, love fluids. Love fluids.
Yeah, gotta have your fluids. But with that being said, these are the songs I guess that like I would have found a little more. Boring's not the right word, but just did not grab my attention in the same way that others did. And I don't really the color of the fire, which I think in the right setting and like an ambient type of like set, I would really enjoy as like an interlude or like as it's being mixed into something else. But here it's just kind of as it's going into like the banger that is Hellphasic Workshop. It's just not as good as the next song, so that's why I picked that one. Bacoma, for a similar reason for Roy G. Biv. And then Aquarius. And Aquarius is one that I could kind of just go without in general. It's like it doesn't really fit the rest of the album for me. It's almost a little like dubby. So yeah, those are my bottom three. Like I said, don't like dislike them, but just don't jump off the page.
Yeah, I'll say this on Bakuma. Every time I hear that, I'm hearing Roy G. Biv coming right after it.
Yeah,
you know,
fair.
so it's like I think
Like waiting to
you
get to
can
the
pair
point.
them. Yeah, you can pair them, and that becomes a bigger thing. You know, but on its own, it's just a cool little synth interlude.
Yeah.
It's like watching the first season of a really good show, but the first season's not very good, but you know the next three are going to be fucking insane.
Like
so you
Stranger
push.
Things.
Right. Or Peaky Blinders, another good one.
Peaky Blinders, yep, sure.
All right. All right. So for me, I also had The Color of the Fire. I don't know. It's like I get what they're doing and I get what Anthony's saying, but it's just like this isn't a song. Like this, I don't know what this is, but it's not a song. And I feel like if I were not in the right headspace and I heard this, it would fucking horrify me. So I had to put it on there. I had Bacoma on there also. I'm kind of just copying Trey here unintentionally. But Bacoma I had because it's almost like I feel like it should be longer. It feels like a blue ball for Open the Light. Open the Light feels like the same vibe and energy, but it's a fleshed out song and it's full, where Bacoma is like they get you close. And some people are into edging. I'm not one of them. So I didn't really vibe with that. Now, if that were my thing, maybe so, but not me. So I had to put it on there. And then my top bottom track is Smoke's Quantity. This song is just unpleasant, man. The noises in this song are unpleasant. Like they make me uncomfortable. It's in a weird octave that doesn't feel like it fits with my ears. Like it just, I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel, and I don't like the sound of it. So I had to put it on there. Just ugh. I don't like it.
If you think some of these songs freak you out, listen to Giagotti. That album is
Just
fucking weird.
Just
as
wait.
shit.
I'm gonna do probably one a year. I think.
Okay,
and
fair.
I've already blown my wad for this year. But yeah, that everything's intentional, you know. And I can't like it's cliche to say that, you know. But I mean, when these guys take 7 years, 3 years, 15 years to put out an album. The last one they put out, I think, was 2013 or 15. But still, it's like you have to just respect the craft of saying everything in there, every little twinkle, every little bird sound, you know, is all intentional. And I would have guessed Blake Smoke's Quantity would have been on your list somewhere. You know, it's a hard listen. It's very like hazy, like the sounds are very hazy and staticky, you know. Who knows how they made that shit? Probably some VHS tape shit.
True.
Yeah. All right. So I like Trey. I was looking at this thinking, where do I even start to try to figure out bottom tracks? So the way that I did this was tracks I feel other people wouldn't like, because honestly, I like everything on here. But number 3, I had Aquarius. You know, Aquarius is one that I think if you're stuck on Orange, then you're like, what the fuck? Why? You know, but what rhymes with orange except for orange? So that one is on there. Number 2, I had Rule the World, really just because of that broken record kind of loop that they have going on. But I fucking love that track. Also, the bird sounds in there are just super. It's a nice touch to an odd track. Top bottom track for me, I love this track. Just wish it was longer. And that's Olsen. Olsen is another. I think Olsen and Aquarius are kind of departures from the bigger picture of the album. From like Aquarius is very groovy, and not a lot of this album is very groovy like that track is. And Olsen is a beautiful piano being played when there's not a lot of that in this album either. But I love that track. Wish it was longer. But Olsen, in this case, is on my bottom tracks.
Okay, I feel that.
Nice. Fair.
Do we have any? So, Anthony, you sent us an article from Pitchfork, which kind of upset me, but I pushed past it. But do we have do we have any reviews? Do we have any actual reviews from publications? Because I couldn't find any. So, did you find any or no?
I didn't look it up because I figured you would have done that.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm slacking.
Your job.
How do you normally look up ratings with Pitchfork?
Just type in the album on Google and then type Pitchfork after it,
okay,
or
yeah,
the album and then Rolling Stone after it.
All right, so I got a Pitchfork rating, and that's all I got right now. But so
right now.
I'll let you guys guess this. Out of 10, what does Pitchfork give Music Has the Right to Children?
They're gonna give it a 10.
This sounds like it sounds like something they would give a very high rating, so I'm going to say a 9.
My homies at Pitchfork got it right, finally. Pitchfork,
don't call them your homies.
Sponsor us? If they want to
no, we will not accept that sponsorship.
I'll take Pitchfork over Topo Chico. Yeah, Pitchfork gives it a 10. And that article is amazing, by the way. It really
article was really interesting.
Yeah, there's some really good insight into this album. So again, listeners, you can just search Music Has the Right to Children in Pitchfork and you'll get a 10 out of 10, and why this album is like the greatest psychedelic album of the 90s, which is a huge statement to say, but like as far as how you characterize psychedelic music, I mean, this shit does it for me. It teleports you telephasic and workshop, right? So,
true.
I'm trying to bring it back. So
Trey, what do you got for a rating?
I give it a solid 8. I give it an 8 out of 10. Very enjoyable. Did a lot for electronic music culture. Big influences on things that we enjoy today. And it's also just really enjoyable to listen to. So, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Feels. I'm going to give it a 7 because I thought it was, like I said, good background music. It was a nice vibe. You know, nothing really like jumped out of the page, out of the phone at me, but I liked it. You know, it wasn't like a effort for me to get through it, so I'm gonna give it a 7.
Fuck yeah. Well, this for sure gets a 10 out of 10 for me. But if you think about too, again, an album that's produced in the 90s, in the late 90s, this thing sounds like it could have been. It sounds like it could have been produced in the fucking 60s, but also in the future too. Like, I think that they've done such a great job of utilizing a vintage sound, whether it is a cassette deck or some synthesizers that they don't even make anymore, you know, or a fucking kid's toy. Like they everything is on the table. And I think that's what really sets this album apart, is it makes you think, how did they even make this, especially in that time? But that's the mystery of it. And I think had we know, like if we knew all the ins and outs that it took to make this album, it goes beyond all doubt that it's one of the best albums made, especially in this context. But the fact that we don't just adds to the mystery of Boards of Canada. And something too that you guys can look up, and listeners, you can look this up too. There's like a 15-minute mini documentary on how Boards of Canada released the latest album in 2013. So recently, you know, Pretty Lights did an interesting kind of digital scavenger hunt, kind of code breaking approach to releasing that EP last year. These guys take it to a whole nother level. I mean, there's like 5 sets of codes that are released around the world that people have to communicate. It is fucking awesome. So I highly encourage you to listen or watch that mini doc. It's on YouTube, and that album is Tomorrow's Harvest. Fucking awesome insight into just the links that they will go to. Just I don't know what they're trying to accomplish, but it's just fucking so cool, I think.
Nice. That is really fucking cool, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that was Anthony. Go ahead and say the album name so I don't mess it up again.
Not say the album name
because I don't have it right in front of me.
I
don't have it right in front of me, and music has has the right to the children.
No.
Music has the right two
To
children. Okay,
Exactly.
there we go. Yeah. First off, it's long, and also, like I said, there's 2 words I feel like should be flipped. But yeah, go check it out. Go give it a listen. Now let's get into Rides or Dies. I'll go ahead and lead us off. So album of the year just dropped, which is Party Next Door and Drake's collab album called Some Sexy Songs for You. It was released on Valentine's Day. So obviously had to shout out my boy P&D, got his first #1 album of his career. And I chose a P&D only song, no Drake, for you guys. And this song is called Deeper. Trey, what'd you think?
Bad. Terrible.
Trey,
Nice.
don't lie. I know you loved
Like
it.
it was awful. I don't understand.
Wrong.
I'm sorry. It's
Trey,
bad,
you're
dude.
saying you didn't love the wordplay that P&D has, where put your ass in my palms and your
Yes.
trust in my arms. You didn't
Have we
just-
not
No.
all been there?
No,
Have
but I
we
do
not
think
all
that-
been there?
I do think
Fuck
we did
no.
agree to not say lyrics in a goofy way because anything can be made to sound dumb that way.
Thank you,
But-
Trey.
Oh,
Thank
no.
you.
That
That
phrase
was an
is
Anthony rule. That was an Anthony rule.
yeah, right. Well,
Yeah.
there's no way. How else would you say
Listen,
this
I don't
ridiculous
know.
ass
It's
line?
terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is terrible.
Just,
For the
just
record.
wrong.
I did listen to more of it, and it just makes me so sad how you've fallen in this schism of the Drake
Yeah.
Kendrick thing. Like, it makes me feel like a failed father in a lot of
Nah,
ways.
you
Like,
don't
I know what it's
understand.
like now to be a Republican father and to raise a little liberal.
You
It's
don't
just
sister.
understand.
disappointing. It's
So
just
Nah.
disappointing.
it makes me closer to my actual father because now I can relate and think a little bit to him.
You'll see the light one day, Trey. I promise.
I won't.
And a Drake album is coming soon,
Oh,
so better
And it'll
strap
probably
in
be
for it.
just as bad as every single one of them that he's ever put out, except for Take Care. You know,
But I guess we'll see.
I
So,
got
Anthony,
like,
the pod.
this definitely dies for me. But I want to ask you, like, in reality, is this album getting love from the world?
Yeah.
Like, is it really getting
I haven't
up
seen
in the
anything about it.
First off, it's #1 right
people
now.
actually like this music?
Yes. Me being one of them. You'll never take P&D from me. I love him too much. All right, you guys. You know what? You guys just don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to get bitches and get money, like I do on a regular basis. So it's tough, and I understand that, And you're telling me that, your girls never wanted you to hit it from the back, but you want to see her face, so you want to do missionary. I know that's happened, and P&D sings about that. He relates to the people. So that's all I had to say.
Have you ever seen P&D live, or is there footage of a live
I'm
P&D
sure he
show?
doesn't
Because
do
I
live
imagine like
shows.
Sane
No, he
Clown
does.
Posse in a different direction.
He does do live shows. He mostly tours in the UK and Canada. But all I'm saying is, in terms of R&B artists, it's got to be better than that weekend show that I went to at Bonnaroo. That shit was bona fide ass. So I gotta assume it's
believe
better
that.
than that. But we'll have to see. I'll make the trip. I'll go see him.
I would
100%.
put Pretty Ricky up higher than P&D for sure. For sure.
All right, Anthony, what do you got?
So my track is called Sex Tape. Not P&D related, but more
Shocking.
Deftones related. So this song, I don't know. I'm recently diving into the Deftones like long form, and fuck, this song stuck out so much for me in that album. And I can imagine like a lot of Deftones fans have had their time with this song because it really is like a more climactic moment in that album. But the form of this song is right up my alley. It starts off with just real simple, heavy guitar riffs, and then the way the vocals are being just belted out. It's a very emotionally driven track for me. But I fucking love it and hope to play this for people many times. But yeah, what do you think, Blake?
Yeah, I think it rides. I mean, Deftones fucking rocks. They're very cool. I was a little disappointed when I saw Sex Tape and it wasn't a P&D song, but I pushed past that. And yeah, I thought it was really, I mean, here's the thing. Deftones, they got lucky, okay? Because they were on the fringe of being a little Creed-like, okay, with their general vibe and vocals. But they execute it perfectly, and his voice is not Creed enough so they're better than Creed, by miles, and they got real lucky because they were right on the edge there, but they pulled it off. So every time I hear a Deftones song, really enjoy it. So definitely rides.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I have an interesting history with the Deftones.
I'd love to hear this.
So, one of those late nights turns into an early morning. One time I was down in Miami. I was with a couple guys who will remain nameless for the sake of anonymity. And we took a very long walk to make it to where you could see the ocean, to watch the sunrise over the ocean. It wasn't the best of ideas because we literally just started heading in the direction of where the ocean would be. We had no real path, and it took us about 2.5 hours to get there. And then we ended up basically outside of a crack house is what we assumed that the location was, like kind of on a pier type situation. It was really weird. But while we were sitting there leaned up against this crack house brick, one of them played Deftones on their phone, and I was like, who the fuck is this? This is awesome.
Fuck yeah.
It's Deftones. And this is one of the songs we listened to Diamond Eyes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I really like the song. Took him back to that very interesting moment in time.
Deftones wasn't coming from the crack house?
That's what I was
waiting. I can see.
Fucking Chino Marino comes out of the crack house.
Yeah, that'd been interesting. No, thankfully we don't think anyone was actually there at the crack house. We did have a weird encounter on the way back, but we did end up taking an Uber back because we didn't want to walk another 2 hours. But
that's fair.
Yeah, very fun.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well,
Yeah,
Trey, what'd you bring?
Wait a minute. Wait.
Wait a Minute is the name of the song that I brought. And it is a song by the Seldom Scene. As mentioned earlier, I kind of spent most of my weekend listening to a lot of different bluegrass, not just Billy Strings, but other local bluegrass artists playing at small clubs around the town. It was basically like a week and a half of just, it was almost like a jazz fest type of situation where there was just days in between. Everyone was playing and out on the town. It was really cool to see Asheville pop off again. And Billy Strings is just a god among us mere mortals. So
Sure.
I wanted to pick a bluegrass song because hopefully, maybe I'll get out of my bluegrass phase that I've been in for the last 4 weeks, but it's like all I've been able to listen to. So I found this song. It's called Wait a Minute. It's a little more like classic bluegrass, not really like prog or anything. And I really like it. It's a little romantic. It was Valentine's Day this past weekend. So what'd you guys think?
I thought it was great. Thought it was very cool. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row you've brought bluegrass, so if you bring it next week, I'll probably give it a dice, but it's still skating by for now. So I thought it was a good track. It was a nice vibe. I mean, I'm very surprised at how much I like bluegrass music, I'll be honest, but I do like it. Something about
nice, though, dude.
Something about it,
It's nice.
Yeah,
so strings.
Giving it a rides.
Yeah, me too. It rides. What I like about this song is that the picking is subtle, or I should say, it's not like they're not showcasing how well they can plick strings. It's very digestible. I really like this song, and never heard of these folks before, but I'll have to keep them on my radar.
Guy's voice is pretty nice too. It's kind of old manny, But this is just like something you could do with some. He sounds like an old man. That's
it's like a Jeff Bridges track, right?
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hell yeah. Solid.
All right, well, that was Rides or Dies. Now we're going to get into the movie, and I'm very interested to hear how you guys feel about the movie. So it is called The Creator. Spoiler alerts for anybody listening that hasn't seen it. It is a sci-fi movie set in the future, and the premise of it is humans are at war with AI that look extremely similar to humans. They do the majority of human jobs. Some say this may be our future. We don't know, which I'm assuming is why Trey's name is Anti-AI for this episode. But the premise is they're creating a weapon. They go in to find the weapon. They find out it is a child, an AI child that can grow and function as a human. And her abilities will only get stronger as she grows. And it's the first one that they have made. So her name is Alpha 1. As in the alpha prototype of this. And yeah, what ensues is a character kind of coming to terms with AI and him, inevitably trying to protect this weapon that they call it, and then forming a bond and him trying to get back to someone he loved very much. So I thought it was very interesting concept, very interesting movie. I thought the visuals were great. I thought the acting was great. But yeah, I don't know. I can't tell. I think like when this movie first came out, there was really really high hopes for it, and then people were let down because the reviews and things of that nature were disappointing at the time. But I enjoyed the ride. I don't know if it's a movie that's trying to be deeper than it actually achieves being, or if it's up there. I think I need to give it more time and a couple rewatches to really determine my thoughts on that. But what did you guys think, Anthony?
So, sorry about that cough. I enjoyed it, man. I didn't like full on like go all out like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can't wait to rewatch it. But there was a lot of interesting quotes that I pulled out of here. First off, let me mention this, Trey, that the Radiohead needle drop in this movie
Yeah,
is
I knew you
so
guys were gonna
good.
love
was
that.
really cool.
Yeah.
So good. I honestly was, and it happens early, like in 15, 20 minutes, I think, into the movie. And before that, I was trying to really suss out this movie because you had asked, you couldn't tell, Blake, if it was a good one or a bad one. But that needle drop, I was full on now, like focused into this shit because it was just so beautiful. But there's a quote at the end of this movie that really stuck with me. And it's when I don't remember any of the characters' names, but it's when there's a human and another human, and one of the humans is kind of grieving over the death or simulated death of one of the Sims or the AIs. And he says this quote. He says, "It's not real. It's just programming." And in that scene, he's referencing to the other human. Don't care for this thing. It's programmed to be that way, But I took it as like a wake up call to humans to say like there's so much programming that's being done in our society, from religion to politics to sports to the military to I mean, there's just like any group, cults that you find yourself in, there's a group think happening, and that programming mentality really, it stuck with me in that moment in this movie because there is a lot of inner conflict with the guy caring for the child, right, and realizing that his DNA is in the child, but it's like, does it matter that it's artificially created or not? Is it sentient? I mean, there's a lot to think on that, and there's a couple euthanasia scenes in this movie too that are really interesting to take in because of this pull of like, well, should you care? You're just turning it off, but what does that mean? And it's just, it is very interesting. So I was glad to bring it. There were a couple things that I was like not so sold on. The biggest one being the downloading of consciousness and then inserting it into another being and that consciousness coming back. I was not really sold on that, but I give it, I mean, the take on this film is very thought provoking. So I had a really good time. Also, I wrote weapons equal bad throughout this movie. Like weapons lead to, yeah.
I can think of Anthony like watching this movie, and that's the first time he's had that realization. He's like, now I'm starting to get it. Weapons,
Weapons are
not
bad.
good. Yeah. Not good.
Yeah.
Trey, what did you think?
I also don't really know how to feel about this movie. On one hand, I'm absolutely terrified of AI. I'm terrified of the people that we currently have in power, not just in this country, but across the world. And the concentration, not just of wealth, but of power, and the amount of power and wealth that AI can provide these people that are creating the laws that are how it's going to govern us. Because, I mean, it does grow exponentially. Like, everything that you see in these movies is possible in the relatively near future, right? So I'm just like really uncomfortable with the thought of it and like thinking about it, and see, like, when people send me stuff from ChatGPT, even though I do occasionally use ChatGPT for work, so I'm part of the problem. But when people send me something like, this is just gross.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of get over that, but visually it was stunning. I'm guessing this was a huge budget movie. I was shocked I hadn't heard of it before. One like gripe. So what was the Chris Nolan movie that John David Washington was in? Tenet, which I did not. Which at first I liked, and then I actually realized that it was about nothing.
Right.
Anyway, and the part where he has he's in the spacesuit at the end, and it's like using his voice that's kind of like space muffled or whatever, like spacesuit muffled. That gave me flashbacks at Tenet when you couldn't understand a word he fucking said the whole movie.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a good actor. I just
really.
Yeah, and so I went into this being like, okay, well, I've seen him in Tenet. Like, let's see how he is in something else. And like, I just feel like he's just like lacking some type of like emotional pull. I think everybody else is really great. I think the kid whatever child actor that is phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely.
So like I liked it, but I also didn't like it. I liked that like that his like perspective changed, but at the same time, is this just propaganda for us to love AI?
Well,
Like
I think
is
it's
that
See, I don't think that. I don't think that's it. Because like this
I'm not
movie
saying that
doesn't.
it is. I'm just saying I feel like that question. But the movie, the sum of the movie is that AI is just like human beings, and once they become sentient, they have feelings just like us. That's the a big message in this movie. I feel like.
Yeah.
well,
Right.
here's my question. Like, I was going to ask you guys this. Like, what side do you think you would be on? Would you be not sides in like a war, but like if you came across an AI being like this that looked almost human, but to the point like they have the obvious thing in their head, right, where you can tell. Would you feel like empathy towards a robot, or would you be like the military in the movie where they're like, ah, fuck it, like it's a robot? Like, what do you
I
genuinely
think I
think
would
you
be
would?
like, fuck it, it's a robot.
I'd be the opposite.
I feel like I would be like, it's not real. It's not an actual
I
sentient
don't think
being.
you would,
that's the
Trey. I
thing.
think
It's
you're
like,
too empathetic.
look at your dog. Look at your dog. I mean, like you can.
My dog's not a robot. It's a biological being.
It's a sentient being.
Yes.
It has feelings and emotions, and if something if you can connect with a fucking water bottle that way, if you can connect with something on that level, what does it matter what it's made of? That's just my mentality. But like, I obviously haven't been in that position, but it's because then at some point it becomes discrimination if you see them as the same, but fucking nobody's the same.
I guess I might be just thinking of it on too big of a picture, and like these things could potentially eradicate us and our way of life entirely.
They
like,
could.
We're not
But that's
going to get universal basic income when these things take jobs.
Right, which is what people think, which I think is fucking hilarious. Like that the government and they're just going to give us money. Like, because that's what the U.S. government has done, has offloaded everybody's jobs and then paid them for it. That'll definitely be how that goes.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, now we have people that have the ear of a president who all he wants is for people to suck his big old or small little pee-pee. And they're all pushing for AI. Like, I mean, Elon Musk is trying to buy back. What's the name of the company? OpenAI.
OpenAI.
Yeah, OpenAI is. Yeah. Like, Meta's trying to introduce all different kinds of different AI things. Like these and we're being anti-regulatory towards AI. So like that just personally that terrifies me.
Do you think? Do you guys think like? I know you said like it's going to grow exponentially, but do you not think that there are jobs that eventually are not that AI can't ever do? Like, is there? You don't think there's jobs that AI can't ever do?
No, I think there's every
my job. I mean,
false.
Teach a human how to connect with another being. You think
Absolutely.
AI would be able to do that?
One day, of course.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
Also, isn't this movie kind of just iRobot? Now that I think about it, like, isn't
never seen that?
No, because iRobot is trying to kill the robots.
But then the same thing happens. They're trying to kill the robots in this movie, but the same thing happens where he ends up empathizing with the main robot because it has sentience.
That's true.
Huh.
There's a scene too, the interrogation scene, where I don't know what his name is. I just put dipshit police officer guy who's just like saying all this ridiculous shit, and then he grabs a puppy too, and it's like what it really seemed like they were trying to display just the pure idiocracy of that person in that position in that moment. Trying to rationalize that type of interrogation just really turned me the wrong way.
Yeah, there's
the military aspect was not pleasant in this film.
There's an interesting scene in this is another AI movie, but in iRobot where he's asking Will Smith is asking the robot, like, can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot paint a masterpiece? And then the robot goes, can you? And then he just kind of sits there like, oh shit, I can't. Right. So it's like, if that's what makes me a human, then are you a human too? Which I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think there are jobs that AI is never going to be able to do, so it'll be interesting. It's going to be a shit show. I'll tell you that much eventually in a few years.
Adaptability is going to be a highly sought after character trait.
Trey can be general of the robot killers though. and we can be his band of
I will take
misfits.
The
that.
revolution.
I will take that role.
And then Anthony will be the character in the movie that's trying to tell us like, don't kill these robots, like trust me. And then Trey will be the war torn hero that's like, we gotta kill him.
There's a face.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be like
film.
super tough, like
Yeah.
a scar across my eye.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing too, before we wrap up. So Gareth Edwards directed this movie. Do you know what he's got coming down the chamber this year? Did you
I do
take
not.
a peek? So Gareth Edwards is going to take a crack at the next or at least the next film in the Jurassic World series.
Okay, nice.
Now, there's a couple things, because I was watching this movie with that in mind too. Like, there's a couple scenes in The Creator where you can't see the ship. I think it's a ship that's in the woods, but you see the trees like moving as it's moving, you know. And that I hope that he brings that type of tension, which is like OG Jurassic Park tension, to this new series. Because Blake, if you want to hear me shit on a movie, bring any of the Jurassic Worlds. Prefer it with Chris Pratt, preferably the last one, because I will straight up pick that movie apart and be like, this, you should not be showing this to the public, because you got fucking Chris Pratt sticking his hand in a raptor's face trying to control. No, get the fuck out. Like, that's not real. That cannot happen. He would die for sure. I have very much a lot of feelings about those movies. So yeah,
This is Anthony's version of My Before Sunrise.
dude, there's literally Kongs in the movie. Go back and watch Jurassic World, the most
I
recent
haven't
one.
seen
And
any
you'll
of them.
see
I haven't
actual
seen any of them.
Kongs on the ground for raptor enrichment. But like, no, it's completely
Oh,
mixed
you take
messages
issue
that
because
should.
it's like a training situation.
It's
or
a
dog
communication
trainer.
with animals. It's
Yeah,
all about
yeah.
communication with animals, and like the way our world is, they see shit in a movie, they're gonna replicate it or see it as actuality, and like people get hurt, you know, and like
Well,
that,
if someone looks at Chris Pratt
Jesus.
holding his hand up to a fake raptor in Jurassic World and they get hurt from an animal that way, they deserve to get hurt
Yes,
from that
but
animal.
the truth
Yeah.
is most bites are deserved anyway, but
Yeah.
you don't have to go down that road. Yeah.
Oh,
I
Next
do want to
week,
point out this guy also directed Rogue One, which I didn't realize that. And Rogue One is the best Star
Yeah.
Wars movie.
Whoa.
Except for
Yeah.
Empire Strikes,
No,
except
I
for Empire
agree.
Strikes Back.
I
Except for
agree.
the second from the original trilogy, Rogue One is just an absolute fucking masterpiece.
It's so good.
It's
And
so
I don't
good.
really like those movies, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
like
I
even
know you don't.
yeah, but that
But
movie.
Rogue One's different. Rogue One's like this like war movie. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it's definitely
like
a war
Star
movie.
Wars was a war movie.
Yeah.
And now that I know that, I can definitely see the similarities in some of like the big scenes, like the Nomad like flying over and like scanning things, and compared to like that big like laser thing in Rogue One. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I thought it was really pretty. I would say it's very well
Yeah.
directed.
I just have to say that there's a meme that the Jurassic Park made me think of where somebody tweets from the Jurassic Park Twitter account, and they tweeted, in a sense, none of our dinosaurs have ever escaped because society itself is just another larger cage. Fuck yeah, that sounds so smart. And then they responded to it and said, but yeah, like 18 or 19 dinosaurs are
Yeah.
currently loose.
Heads up.
Okay,
That's
so next week it's my album and Trey's
Trey.
movie pick. Okay, so here's the thing. Drake is coming. It's not going to be next week. I'm going to let you guys prep, but we're going to go down a lane that I'll be interested to hear. Trey, I know, loves this album, but I'll be excited to hear more in depth. But I took Anthony down a world that I was shocked at his response of, and it was J. Cole's Born Sinner. And Anthony enjoyed that album, rated it rather highly, 8.5, I remember, because I was so
Look at
shocked
that.
at how highly he rated it. So now, several years later, after Born Sinner, we're going to go back to the J. Cole discography, and we're going to do the Off Season, which came out in 2021. And it is very, in my eyes, different than Born Sinner. So I will be interested to hear Anthony's take on this. But yeah, so that's what we got for album. Trey, what do you got for movie?
Oh, first off, hell yeah, I haven't listened to this album in so long. It's very, very good.
Nice.
I don't know, man. I was thinking about doing the Italian Job. When's the last time have you seen the Italian Job?
Yeah, a lot.
No,
okay.
I have not.
Oh, you've never seen the Italian Job? We're doing the Italian Job.
Is it a
do
heist movie?
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
heist movie.
Oh, I fucking love heist movies. Can
Marky
we do?
Mark.
Can we
It's
do
got Marky
three?
Mark in it. It's got Charlize Theron
Yeah.
in it.
Oh yeah, dude. Can we
Don
do three
Cheadle,
back to back to back heist movies? Because man, I fucking love heist movies.
Heist movies are the best.
We're getting
Okay.
close to 100, but I like the idea though of us doing running themes with our picks. We just have to establish on the front end what the
Yeah.
theme is, or guests, or listeners.
Because we
can
did it.
throw
We
us
did it with
a genre.
sports. We did it with sports
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Okay, the Italian Job. What do you know? What it's on, Trey?
I don't. Hold on
I'll
a second.
find
Mail you a DVD
Yeah,
because I do have that one on.
I think I
DVD.
actually have the DVD for this
Yeah.
one.
yeah. And I
Um,
still
it-
got a PlayStation I could play it on. Shout out my
Yeah.
PlayStation, which
It
is
looks
now
like
just a
it's on
Blu-ray
it.
player.
It looks like it's on Amazon Prime.
All right, sweet,
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
cool. All right, boys. Well, 'twas a blast. We will do it again next week, and yeah, see everybody then.
Good.
Peace.
Peace.